On February 2nd, 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out on an expedition into the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia. They never returned. Their bodies were found under strange and unsettling circumstances, some with horrific injuries, others with inexplicable radiation contamination. Over 6 decades later, the Dyatlov Pass incident still baffles the world. Was it an accident? A freak natural event? Or could it have been something far more sinister, like a secret government experiment? Today, we'll explore that chilling possibility. The hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, were on a journey to reach Otorten Mountain. Their trip was well planned, and they had the experience to handle the harsh Siberian conditions. But when they failed to return, a search party was sent out. Their tent was found abandoned, slashed open from the inside, and the hikers had fled into the freezing night, some barefoot, and others in little more than their underwear. As the weeks passed, bodies were discovered in various locations, scattered across the snowy terrain. The injuries they sustained were chilling. One hiker had a crushed skull, another had a broken rib cage, and there were unexplained wounds, internal injuries that looked like the force of a car crash. But what made it even stranger? Some of the bodies were missing eyes and tongues. There were even more baffling details. Some of the hikers' clothing was covered in strange levels of radiation. This was something nobody could explain. In the middle of nowhere, how could these hikers have been exposed to radioactive material? Theories about an avalanche, animal attacks, or a freak accident circulated, but the facts didn't fit. These oddities were enough to spark more than just casual curiosity. They made some people think there was something more at play. A theory that the hikers were victims of a secret Soviet government experiment. The idea that the Dyatlov Pass incident was the result of a secret government experiment is one of the most chilling theories to emerge over the years. In the 1950s, the Soviet Union was notorious for its secretive military projects, including weapons tests and research into psychological warfare. Some believe the hikers unknowingly walked into the testing zone for a new weapon or scientific experiment, perhaps something involving radiation, sound waves, or even a form of mind control. The strange injuries and the radiation found on their clothing support this theory. Some even think the hikers could have been caught in an experimental area where they were exposed to high levels of radiation or some form of military technology that caused mass panic and disorientation. What kind of experiments might the government have been conducting in that area? One possibility is that the hikers were in a location where radiation from a secret test was being released. The Soviet Union was involved in testing nuclear and chemical weapons at the time, and there are reports of other mysterious radiation exposure incidents in nearby areas. Some experts speculate that the hikers' injuries, internal trauma without external wounds, could have been caused by some sort of energy weapon or sonic attack, which might explain why they fled their tent in such a state of confusion. Perhaps they had no idea they were in danger until it was too late. The Soviet government's tight control over information only adds fuel to the fire. After the hikers were found, the Soviet authorities quickly stepped in and tried to control the narrative. Key details of the investigation were kept secret, and the official report stated that the hikers' deaths were caused by a compelling force that could not be identified. In the years following, some of the hikers' families reported being pressured to remain silent, and rumors swirled that the government had covered up the truth. The KGB's involvement, as well as the oddities surrounding the investigation, only deepened suspicions that the government was hiding something, perhaps the tragic results of an experimental weapon gone horribly wrong. Of course, not everyone believes in this government experiment theory. Some experts point to natural explanations, like an avalanche or a rare phenomenon known as a katabatic wind, which can cause sudden disorientation and panic in the mountains. Still, the presence of radiation, the bizarre injuries, and the strange behavior of the hikers before their deaths make it hard to ignore the possibility that something more sinister was involved. In February 1959, 9 hikers mysteriously died in the Ural Mountains. Their injuries and radiation exposure sparked theories, including one that they were caught in a secret Soviet government experiment. Could their deaths be linked to a covert military test? The mystery remains unsolved.